Hello, dear students. I'm Dr. Surendra K. Singh, teaching Indian Society and Social Justice at GSS Core, Faculty of Sociology. Today, in the series of the Mains Probables, what the GSS Core has started, we'll be talking about the certain probables in 2025 Mains in Indian society. The purpose of us here in GSS Core was basically to zero down on a certain kind of important topics, particularly those who will be taking mains this year. And of late, when we're looking at the paper 1, you might have found out that the number of questions from Indian society has not only increased, but they have become more conceptual. Though the syllabus which is written over there in the first paper seems to be a bit concise, incisive, with a certain kind of headings, right from the salient features of Indian society to population, development, women's roles and organizations, secularism, communalism, regionalism, social empowerment, along with urbanization problems and remedies. They have also added globalization's impact on the Indian society. So probably these are the certain areas which you might have prepared for your mains. However, let me make it very clear to you that anything that you are witnessing, you are coming across, reading in your newspaper, whose nature is social, could be the area of interest, could be the areas of probables in terms of the Indian society. And right from 2013, from where the syllabus changed, the nature of questions were not deep down the conceptual essence of the Indian society. But particularly in the last 3 or 4 years, you might have analyzed, you might have gone through, looking at all the PYQs, previous year questions, and preparing yourself. You know, PYQs are not only the questions through which you could understand that where your preparation is going on. PYQs are also to be viewed in terms of understanding the trend in civils and also anticipating certain kind of probables from where the question could have come out. Usually, I have been saying it in the last 25-24 years of my teaching, that you basically need to go behind the lines. What we usually do, that we try to keep between the lines or we read the lines. No, you need to go behind the lines. And you need to develop a very keen analytical mind to analyze the social happenings which is taking place in society. Probably when we're looking at most of the things, either in terms of economy to polity to environment ecology to science and technology, some or other, they have their repercussions on society. So these issues, these broader dimensions which you pick up in other subjects, other disciplines, they have their reverberations in Indian context as well, Indian society and culture as well. Thus, when you are reading it, preparing the polity, economy and other kind of areas in your GS, also try to give some time to think on their impact on Indian society and culture. Now, when we are looking at the most probable say, we are talking about that, understand the most important issues for Mains 2025. Now, in this very perspective, one of the areas which I am picking up, no, I don't believe in PPT, let me make it very clear to you. because it does not provide a certain kind of creativity. This is my personal view. So in terms of the salient features, try to link the dimension of diversity either in terms of the happenings in regionalism, what we're looking at, or either in terms of the linguistic diversity. So from there, you look at the probables which you're talking about. I'm giving certain areas. And I'm linking it with a certain kind of perspective. That the way we are finding about the linguistic diversity as one of the strengths of the Indian nationalism. That how the growing demands of the linguistic specification is somewhere bringing about a duality between the localism and nationalism. So that way you would be able to link that with the regionalism as well. Maharashtra for the Marathis, Assam for the Assamese, such kind of questions have been raised. The words could vary. Your conceptual clarity should be there. That you should basically try to understand on that very perspective. And then you also try to focus on Dalit consciousness, rising political activism, and assertiveness. You just also try to give few minutes to understand that how the today's Dalit consciousness or emerging Dalit consciousness, assertiveness, and its nature seems to be different from the traditional Dalit assertiveness. So in one line you might have come across that the moment we are talking about that what were the concerns of Dalits earlier, that was basically opposition of Hinduism or Brahmanism kind of perspective. But today the equality, social justice, democracy, such kind of demands are coming out. So try to look it with the phases, so the Dalit consciousness would be there. And there could be questions on Dalit identity, because now we are looking at in certain states what we are finding about that how the certain kind of polarization has started taking place. And we have found about the certain kind of violent incidences. So from there, just give some time to look on the caste, and within the caste more precisely among the Dalit. But if the question comes in terms of Dalit identity, try to be very specific. Your answer should be so clear, so analytical, that you would be able to make them understand what you understand, what you want to convey. For example, if I say that identity is constructed vis-a-vis another, and it is also involved with the cultural experiences, historical cultural experiences. And Dalit is not a caste in which one is born into. Rather, it is a category. And that way you just try to look at it, how the new kind of consciousness or political assertiveness is emerging out. So from the caste system, one of the salient features of Indian society, this question could come out. And the way the certain kind of political demands in terms of the caste census that has started emerging out, you can also relate that in terms of the caste census. It means if I say that caste is weakening and strengthening at the same time, examine. If such kind of question comes out that here in terms of caste and politics, caste and caste census, emerging Dalit consciousness, caste polarization, these are the factors which are also reflecting that how the strengthening aspect of culture is, the caste is emerging out. And caste is a social reality that we need to realize. All right. They have also asked the questions in terms of the views of Gandhiji and Ambedkar. So somewhere we are talking about this one. And there could be question among in terms of Dalits, that in terms of the positive discrimination. So here you can relate it with policy of reservation. And be analytical. Do not be carried by your emotions. Because there are many areas in Indian society where whether you like it or not, you will be taking sides. No. In a civils, you do not have to take sides. You need to be neutral, you need to be balanced. And this policy of reservation, which not only become the part of Unit 1, Paper 1, it could also become the part of the governance in a Paper 2. And that could also be related in terms of the Paper 4 in terms of ethics. Could be part of a social justice. That you might have gone through, there was one question somewhere it is asked in terms of the John Rawls. That social justice is an ethics of redressal. And in this very perspective, they had asked you that how Rawls theory could be applied in any context. You just try to think on that very perspective. You might have prepared it. Just add certain lines on this one. And then, in a salient features of Indian society, also keep an eye on the changing nature of family and precisely marriage. They had asked the question last year in terms of, is a marriage losing a sacrosanct character? And thus there you will be looking at in terms of it is also called cohabitational. So don't get confused if they have used this word. So the live-in relationship is coming out in terms of certain states where we find about that how in a UCC implementation of UCC, this debate on live-in relationship come out. Or is live-in relationship is basically providing certain kind of challenge to the institution of marriage. Alright? Or what are the certain alternatives emerging to the institution of marriage in which the live-in relationship will be coming out. So you just try to look on that very perspective. And once we have talked about this one, particularly in Uttarakhand, you find about that how UCC where the certain debate on the live-in relationship was come out. And they had also added the part of their live-in relationship over there. So I'm just expecting certain questions, probables from this aspect as well. And once you have done this one area from where almost every year the certain questions have been coming out is basically the women. And either you were talking about in terms of the women empowerment. So here your focus should be there in terms of women. Open that in many areas, like working women, there could be certain dimensions of the challenge for the working woman. Both looked at in a pros and cons. Increasing suicide, this is another phenomena which you're finding about. Suicide among women. Though I wanted to let you know that how in the pretext of marriage, the way the misuse of Dowry Act or the deceiving by the women is leading to the suicide among the men's could be at another probable areas, but I doubt if this such kind of questions would be basically raised in civils. So look at the increasing suicide rates and also relate that in terms of population, decreasing fertility. So there you talk about in terms of decreasing fertility. Because if we look at that how the women empowerment, they have related with the population control. So there you talk about this, how in the recent times, in the modern times, we have found about that how the rate of fertility has declined. And NHS data, you have gone through 2019 and others. So National Family and Health Survey, so that where the data is there, that we are finding about how the replacement level has come out. The TFR, total fertility rate, has declined, has come down to 2.1. So that way the data are there with you. Look at that on that very perspective. Also look at the challenges in terms of which will be related with the population, that is the sex ratio. Yet another area which I was basically thinking in terms of, apart from the women empowerment, recently we have found about either the debates in terms of termination of pregnancy act, medical termination of pregnancy acts and others. And then we have also recently, within few days, we find about that how the Honorable Court has allowed the woman to, or the girl to abort. So in this very perspective, there could be probable in terms of mind the concept, beta, reproductive justice. So from there, this question could be raised. So look on that very perspective. Women empowerment is at another area from where we'll be talking about the questions which are there. Related with the certain programs and policies which will be there in the paper 2. So anyone who will be coming for the governance will be talking about the certain programs. But they would also be having their passing reference in a first paper, because the women's roles and organizations have been there. The challenges before the working women, the challenges before the Indian woman in general. Alright? So they had asked you the time and space. You prepare the questions in terms of discrimination and atrocities against the Indian woman, and try to relate right from the conceivement till the old age. Because the questions of the challenges which comes in a woman, we basically talk about in terms of the problems faced by the adult woman, no. Right from the PCPNDT Act, Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Technique Act, 1994, from there we find about how sex-selected abortions are taking place, despite it being declared to be criminal offense legally. We have been finding about the sex-selected abortions taking place. So try to look it from there if the challenges are coming out. Alright? And then yet another area which we'll be looking at in terms of the globalization and its impact. Alright. I don't know, one of the area that is be there, we might have gone through in terms of science and technology. So they can ask you the questions in terms of AI, artificial intelligence, and its impact on society. So you talk about this AI and its social implication. You can also relate this in terms of the role of social media. In the contemporary perspective, globalization could also be linked at how globalization is in increasing the class divide. Globalization is also increasing the inequality between the nations. So that way we talk about in terms of the economic inequality produced by globalization. I don't know today in terms of the social media or globalized world, where nothing globalization does not seem to be unknown to anyone. Anything that taking place in any part or remotest part of the globe has its reverberations on other part of the countries as well. So like from the right from the local to the regional to the national to the international, such kind of transfer, ICT, information and communication technology. So you just look it from there, and can we give some time half an hour to collect the data on digital arrest. Also, initiatives by the government. So just go through this digital arrest, because this is quite happening out, and every time when you're opening up the mobiles, we're finding about the certain kind of alert in the voice of Amitabh Bachchan. All right. So what are the initiatives the government has done? What is the digital arrest and how to overcome? So certain kind of suggestions may be asked from there. Then also talk about in terms of the linguistic diversity. I said about how the growing reservation policies for the locals, because we are finding about in certain states where the certain kind of nativistic ideology is being promoted. So there could be question in terms of the growing reservation demand for the locals is also bringing about the disparity between regional aspirations and the national integrations. All right, comment, or what do you think? So certain kind of assessment of yours could be there. Yet another area which I am thinking which would be there apart from this would be from education. Keep an eye on NEP. Aspirations and challenges, and also try to focus separately in one of the challenges of the educational policy, that is in terms of digital divide, and look at that what are the certain initiatives the government has introduced to overcome this digital divide more precisely between the rural and urban areas. So that way you would be integrating the paper 1 with the paper 2 in terms of the programs and the policies in part of the governance. So the digital divide could be there. Tribals, the way we are looking at the certain kind of happenings either in terms of the ethnic identity movements. So if I say that, do you think that today the tribes in India are dealing with the intertwined challenges of cultural assimilation and economic marginalization? So here, apart from this, yet another broader areas would be tribes in India. Look in terms of cultural assimilation, and also in terms of economic marginalization. You know, when you are looking at the certain specific categories, either in terms of the Dalits or the tribals or the women's or the old age or the children's, even the minorities, all right, you do not only develop the conceptual clarity, but you also try to look at what are the policies which the government has basically initiated in the recent times. So few policies would be basically making you understand, and that way the certain questions could be anticipated from there. All right. Yet another area apart from the tribes, they had asked you the question that why the tribes in India are called scheduled tribe. So Article 366, Clause 25, Article 342, along with the 5th and 6th schedule. So you might have gone through in your polity in terms of the scheduled area and tribal areas. You might have gone through in terms of PESA, Panchayat Extension and scheduled areas, which you have prepared it. Try to relate that with the tribal one and prepare some of the points, the structure points with which you will be going to your mains. So that if the certain questions comes out on there, it will be easier in part of you to comfortably deal with such kind of questions. All right. The new initiatives to the tribals. And I'm also saying that in the tribals, you just give 5 minutes to talk about the PBTZ. What are the criterions of PBTZ? Right from the Devar Commission to the 75, we're talking about how the numbers are there. what are the grounds of indicators on which this is there, how the 100% centrally sponsored programs are there in the states. You just prepare few structured points on the PBTs as well. One area, I don't know which time and again I'm saying which would be from where the questions would be bit tricky and bit analytical, would be the population dynamics. Open the areas in terms of sex ratio, all right? Demaru states, they have asked the questions on economically developed states, skewed sex ratio. I don't know whether you have come across the word Demaru. D for daughter, Maru for killing. So daughter elimination for the male aspiration for rising aspiration for ultrasounds. So that in 2001 census you find about that how the term Demaru came out, and so look at the terms of Demaru, D-E-M-A-R-U, all right? So look at the sex ratio. Despite this, that how sex ratio at birth, which the new data considers is to be 10:21, all right? So sex ratio at birth and overall sex ratio, we find about a lot of difference. So prepare on that, think on that line, all right? It's not much, taking much time of yours in terms of preparation, but once again I'm saying, the number of questions have increased from the Indian society, which I'll just be talking about. Let me first give you the probables. And why such questions comes out, I'll be talking about just now. Apart from this, you just keep and focus on the changing age composition. You try to look from both, not only the old age, that is aging, also look it from the perspective of youth. All right. Demographic dividend versus the demographic liability, prepare on that very perspective. All right. Or what are the demographic advantages? Do we need a new population policy? So the debate on the population policies. And relate that there could be questions in terms of NRIC. So relating it with the second paper we have gone through in terms of this one or the NPP. Why I'm saying, because this could be also related with the SIR which you have started in Bihar. In terms of what the Election Commission has started the SIR in Bihar, and where we are basically not only talking about that revision of the electoral list, but we are also addressing the illegal immigrants, and more precisely in terms of Rohingyas and Bangladeshi Muslims. And this is the one which we are finding about this debate that is polarizing, taking place in Indian society in a different states, right from UP to Bihar to Assam and even in Delhi. So we are finding about such kind of things, right? Even in Uttarakhand and others. So that way, that how the illegal SRI debate in Bihar to deal with the illegal immigrants. So that way, this will also become the part of your population dynamics. All right. Do think at another line which I am opening up in terms of population and environment. In a geography, environment, ecology, science and technology, you might have gone through climate change to the all issues of environmentalism. You just try to now think, link it that with the population. So these are the certain areas which you're talking about. All right. Yet another area from where the questions in the last PYQs and I was thinking of what's coming out is urbanization. All right. Open up. अभी डिबेट किस पे चल रहा है बेटा? अभी तो green urban planning. So initiatives on the green urban planning, just try to look at. there could be yet another areas which I am finding the questions in terms of pollution in urban areas. Right, so when you're talking about urbanization problems and the remedies, so right from there, right from the water crisis to the urban flooding, you might have gone through. Urban heat islands in geography, you might have gone through, or in a science and technology, you have gone through, environmental ecology, you have gone through. So there are many areas which require interdisciplinary approach. So apart from the pollution, the internal migration has increased post-pandemic. Prepare that question in internal migration. And there are questions in terms of smart cities. So challenges, how to identify the smart cities. All right. Boyd Cohen, Giffinger. I don't know whether, just try to look at the names so that you would be able to understand that how Giffinger has provided the 6 indicators of the smart city. So that way, the certain questions in terms of a smart city and government initiatives and challenges. So this is another area which in the urbanization we will be looking at. You know, one another area from where the maximum questions have been asked and they have been very conceptual. That is basically, I am talking together. We talk about the communal polarity. Problem of minorities. All right. And there have been a very good questions on secularism. They ask the questions on sect, Western versus Indian secularism. What are the challenges of cultural practices in the name of secularism? All right. Well, in the second paper, they had asked the questions in terms of what France can learn from the Indian secularism in constitutionally. I may not remember the questions exactly, but this was the essence which I am talking about. Right from the Charlie Hebdo incidents, we find about where the caricature of Pagambar Muhammad Sahib has come out. And from there, we find about the debate and how the very principle of laicite, L-A-I-C-I-T in France, that was compromised. And the state tried to intervene, heightened intervention in the matters of religion started taking place in France. I just try not only to prepare secularism merely from the Indian context, because the debate on secularism is also taking place today in almost all the nations of the world. And those who are the developed nations, there we are also finding about the certain debates coming out in terms of majoritism and minoritism. So that way you just prepare the certain questions and analytical questions you prepare on that very perspective. All right. So there could be the new emerging religious consciousness. All right. So relate that one with the secularism, relate that one with the communalism. All right. One of the greatest aberration to the practice of secularism would be communalism. Communal violences taking place every now and then. And in this very perspective, the things are to be looked at. These are the certain areas which broadly I think that you need to talk about. So if I repeat now in terms of caste system, look at the caste system within which your focus would be in the Dalit consciousness or assertiveness, identity. Also talk about the alternative to marriage and the family, the changes which are coming up. Think on the certain debates on a live-in relationship which I talked about. That could be a question because now it has also acquired the legal kind of acceptance. So certain kind of honorable courts verdict have started coming out include that in a part of answers. Women, I said about that working women to the society, to the decreasing fertility, to the empowerment. Also focus on women's reservation bill and the challenges before it. There's a dichotomy which you need to look it from that what the government has proposed and what are the challenges the women's reservation bill may face. So you look at this very perspective and then reproductive justice I opened up either in terms of the forceful sterilization or in terms of the abortion and other kind of perspective. So there you just look at the reproductive justice and the women. All right, reservation policies. So in terms of the moment you talk about prepare the women's reservation bill, then you will also be talking about the reservation policies in general, right from the scheduled caste to scheduled tribe, and thus relate that with the localism versus nationalism in terms of that how in the certain states. That's why I said that growing reservation demand for the locals is also reflecting the disparity between regional aspirations and the national integration. Globalization, I said, where I have opened the two particular areas in terms of digital arrest and the government initiatives, the social media, and also that how globalization is increasing the class divide. There could be at another area on which we talk about that how the economic disparity between the nations is increasing due to globalization. So think on that line and prepare from there. Demographic advantage, I said about demographic dividend versus the demographic liabilities. New education policy, what kind of policies do we want in population? All right, the fear of demographic change which we are witnessing. I doubt whether they will be relating population with the religion, because though in a certain parts, the certain kind of narratives which are being created in the certain states. All right, where what kind of population policy, coercive population policy has been focused. So you just look on that population policy, relate that one in terms of NRIC, because I related that one in terms of SIR, the exercise which has begun in Bihar, and it is being said that it will be followed in other states as well. So that way, the perspective of illegal immigrants which we are talking about, that could be related with this one. And in this perspective, the population policy and other dimension that could be talked about. Education, NEP, once again I'm saying that look at this one. Also relate that one with the linguistic challenges, that how the certain states have come out that Hindi should not be imposed. But that would also become part of the regionalism. So look at the certain kind of interconnectivity. So linguistic diversity, which is also a strength and a challenge, examine. So relate that one. And then do prepare a certain initiatives on the digital divide, that what the initiative the government has talked about. Secularism, now when we're talking about that, though they will not be asking with us this UP Madarsa Act which has come out recently. This act would not be asked, but somehow or other the challenges before secularism or your views on UCC, informed civil code that could be coming out, because some of the states right from the Goa to Uttarakhand and others, the way that is being emerging out, and other states are also following the suit. So look at on UCC, so challenges of secularism and relate that even a communalism. We're talking about the communal polarization and others. The government initiatives do focus on this one. Then urbanization, we talked about the green urban planning, pollution, smart cities, internal migration. All right. And tribals, I talked about, this is one area in terms of the tribal identity, ethnic, or that how they are basically facing the intertwined challenges in terms of the cultural assimilation and economic marginalization. Then you can also look on poverty. So these are the major areas on which we talked about the issues which we are talking about. However, let me say that you might have prepared the entire Indian society, the syllabus which have been there. In the entire syllabus, when you are prepared, just try to link these new kind of happenings which are taking place as the new probables within the broader framework of your answers, with the broader framework of your preparation. All right? There is no such thing as currents. Currents will always be finding their locations in the broader perspectives, what you have gone through in the areas. One time of a sporadic incident will not become the social in character, so you need to understand that one. The certain kind of social happenings which are taking place, which have a broader implication for the society, could become the base of the questions, could become the probable of the questions. All right. PYQs, look it, sit down for 1 hour, look at all the PYQs and try to think not only that how this range of questions have come out to understand the trend, but also just try to look at the certain kind of anticipation of the questions from them. And let me say that when you are preparing secularism or communalism, the related terms should be there. Anyone who is talking about secularism or communalism would also be talking about the certain dynamics of religion. So they ask the question in terms of religiousness, religiosity and communalism. All right. Sect, caste and the areas in 2022, if I am not wrong, this question which were there. All right. The pluralism, assimilation and other kind of perspective in a secularism. So these questions are coming up. Go behind the lines. Your conceptual clarity should be one-liner. All right. And let me say it very categorically clear here. That though you are focusing on the certain happenings as a probables in 2025, but these certain happenings as a current, you need to provide them locations in the broader dimensions of the syllabus of the Indian society which has been given over there. Think on the interconnectivity, intersectionality, interdisciplinary approach. And now you might have come to the stage where the boundary of the syllabus is gone. Break this boundary of the syllabus. You are reading one area, look at in terms of conceptual, look in terms of governance, look in terms of economy, internal issues, look in terms of the ethical dimensions that way. You might have come across today where you might have broken the boundary of the syllabus from paper 1 to paper 4. There's a 1 GS. So that's why I said in a very onset, I said that if you are reading in polity, economy, or you are talking about science, technology, environment and ecology, the certain issues which you are talking about, just give 5 or 10 minutes to think that what you are reading in these areas, what implication they have on the society. And in this very perspective, the syllabus has to be looked at. There will be no new happenings which would be unaware of. All right. Something you will write. But the point is that when you write in a flow, when you write with an analytical mind, all right, the chances of you getting marks become the more important. And that's why I also said, and this is the fact, that in the last few years, the number of questions from Indian society has increased. The weightage of the questions in the first paper, GS, from Indian society has increased manifold. Prima facie, the moment you look at the questions, you feel that you understand it. But what are the things that will be fetching you marks require the conceptual clarity? A structured synopsis with which you will be going to the mains. Today, I always say, very openly I say, that you need to go to the mains with a certain kind of a structural synopsis in your mind. So the questions which are there, you just introspect that one, and if possible, write down that these are the points which I am talking about. But let your answers be flawless and linear. All right? Do not leave anything on the syllabus. Break the syllabus, the dimensions. You have enough time now. Do not be afraid of that you have only 1 month or something left. No. Enough time is there. You are not a novice. It is not so that today you will be starting. You have gone through this one. You need to believe in your strength. All right? And minimize your weaknesses. You are not perfectionist. So do not go for the perfectionist kind of attitude. The more you would be able to minimize your weaknesses, the better result oriented you would be. All right? Open up the dimensions. The more dimensions you open up, the more PYQs would be handled comfortably. The probables would be handled comfortably. And you would be going to the mains hall with confidence. All right? And in this very perspective, these are the dimensions which I just broadly opened up. But once again, I am saying, go through the entire syllabus, what you have gone through, revise that one. whatever the newer kind of things which are happening out, right from the UCC to the live-in relationship, to the certain challenges to marriage, to the Dalit, to the economic disparity, to the poverty, the certain kind of list, all right, the children's, all right, hunger index, whatever the things which are coming out, which you are witnessing, or the linguistic jingoism, if I could use this word, which is taking place in a certain parts of the country, all right, and we are finding about that how the locals are asserting their identity over the outsider, perceived outsider, where they are perpetuating in violence to assert their identity. Whether this would be detrimental to the national integration or the broader nationalism, imagine, think on that line, prepare certain kind of structures, all right, the certain kind of examples to substantiate your view, and this way the things would be there. Look, no question in a Indian society is beyond your reach. Let me make it very clear to you. The only thing is that whether conceptually you have been clear or not, and you have been able to address the entire disposition of the question or not, this is more important. All right? That's why I say that when you talk about secularism, talk about religion, you be free that what is religion? Or as a belief in a supernatural being. The individual to collectivity in terms of the coherent policies you will finding about religiosity, religiousness, such kind of things would be there. Sects, they ask the question on sect. So any religion which emerge in defiance of the established religion is a sect. So that way the questions would be there in terms of Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism. And now this such kind of things could be looked at, that where their spread is there, which are the community in which the impact of Buddhism, Jainism and Sikhism could be found. All right. And when you talk about secularism, do talk about that how secularism also seems to be the historical manifestation in terms of the philosophical tradition and particular frame of mind. Whenever you read the debates, you just try to look in a broader canvas, not only in terms of one. All right. And look at, time and again, you just give some time to look at. And if there's any problem, just try to find out that how this problem could be solved. All right. We are here to help you. And that's why this very series has been initiated by GSS Core, so that if the certain probables which you are suggesting, if it has come out, and you could go to the examination hall with such kind of probables, things will become much more easier in part of you. And I wish all of you the best of luck. All right. And thank you. Do not be afraid of. Feel proud that you are taking mains. All right. So many people and a very good number of people have been rejected. They have not been selected. You are one of them who have got the chance to take the mains. So feel proud. All right. Believe in your internal strength. Believe in yourself, and you can do it. All right. We are here. We the teachers are here to help you out. And once again, I wish all of you the best of luck. Thank you.